you're a creative mind, but also entrepreneur, and you're working with a creative. Do you ever have like conflicts with like collaborating on a project?
I have butt heads with people sometimes. If I'm working with an artist, it's like the rules versus the vision. But I also understand as an artist, the vision and wanting to stick with it. But within that, there's rules.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to branding, trying to find a common ground, wanting to go back to the image but change it just a little bit. I said, even if you change it a little bit, it's gonna mess things up, and a good little experiment just to see how things, but if it's not working out, you need to go back before, we get in too deep, but it doesn't happen too often.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Yem podcast. And Happy New Year, because we're filming this one before the new year, but it'll be released in the new year. So Happy New Year. Today, I'm with Ali. We connected through Threads.
Hello.
So, Ali, thank you so much. She's from Katanning. She traveled all the way out here, so she's a real one.
Yeah,
for traveling all this
absolutely.
way, so thank you so much. So why don't we just kick it off? You just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. My name is Ali, a nickname for Alessandra. I'm from Katanning, and I am a creative. My family and I, we own a 501c3 nonprofit. We had a physical space, so we were a independent nonprofit venue called the Radioactive Event Center. And our mission is to provide a professional platform for artists, musicians, and entertainers to learn, grow, and showcase their talent.
Nice.
So within the space, we did everything from concerts to fundraisers to, workshops and things of that sort. We worked with high school tech students on, providing a real life work experience, things of that sort. And that's also where I learned everything that I know now, photography, videography.
Nice.
What better place to, practice than in a venue that you own, And, out of that came Blossom Media. Mm-hmm. It's a business that I started where, I provide visual branding and things of that sort, but my audience is musical artists and music-based events. So,
Gotcha.
I help them establish and build an influential brand identity. And under the umbrella of Blossom Media, I started a music discovery channel called The Blossom Sessions. Very much like Tiny Desk, Audio Tree, things of that sort, except artists perform their songs reimagined.
Gotcha.
So, if we have someone playing piano for you, great. Bongos, let's do it. Harp, amazing. Just anything to make it such a unique audio-visual experience that you wouldn't normally see in a live concert setting.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's so important nowadays with so much it's like with social media, like anything you can do to stand out is so important for your brand. So how did you get into this? Are you a musician yourself or?
I am.
Nice.
So I've been a lover of all kinds of music, all my life. My dad got me my first instrument. It was a keyboard.
Nice. And shout out to Mark. Mark's here with us.
Yeah.
You can't see him, but he's in the back.
Shout out, Dad. But yeah, he got me my first keyboard at 3 years old.
It's awesome.
So I say that's my native instrument, you know what I mean? But I play guitar, I play drums, I sing. My first project was a pop music project, kind of making radio pop kind of stuff. That was really fun. We did that for about 2 or 3 years. Tried a little bit of music production myself. I'm not super great at it, but a couple of the songs that I did within my project, I did self-produce, and it was a fun experience. But I think I prefer to be behind the scenes and behind the camera, which is kind of ironic, but
yeah, makes sense.
I liked singing and stuff, but I don't know if I like being the forefront of a image.
That makes sense. At least you have that actual background and knowledge of everything. So what you're helping promote, you actually have firsthand experience doing so.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's a great value to what you bring to artists too. Yeah. So I want to dive into, you talked about branding and specifically with musicians. So is there something that you see nowadays that artists a kind of a branding mistake that they make? Do you know what I mean?
I think, I used this example in a recent interview. For bands that are starting out, they might write an album or, know they want to release a single. Okay, we know that we want a new profile picture across all of our socials. We need promos. The branding mistake is not knowing how you want to present yourselves, which, they might show up to the photo shoot in t-shirts and jeans, which may be fine, but if you guys don't look, like a collective,
Yeah.
wearing all the same color or, whatever, then you're going to look like a bunch of random people. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
And even, visuals, I said that's kind of how, you need a photographer. So you reach out to one. But if the photographer also doesn't quite have an understanding of branding and things of that sort, it's how you end up with promos against a brick wall.
Yeah,
You know
exactly.
what I mean? And it's easy for, just in the moment, okay, we need a picture, but there's a lot of other bands that have the same brick wall,
Yeah, exactly.
image. So I think a very simple branding mistake is just not taking the time to sit down and be like, okay, how do we want to present ourselves to our market?
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you find that like a lot of musicians that are trying to make it or artists have trouble like just being themselves? Like putting like looking at whoever their role model is and trying to like portray them rather than like portraying themselves in like their art. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I do think a lot of artists have trouble doing that, and but it is hard to start out with your own identity. I
Yeah.
think nearly every artist and every band started out kind of like as a copycat. And in a lot of ways, it helps. I will say the band Bad Omens, as an example, they are international at this point. But if you go back and look at the very first album they put out and stuff like that, a lot of it is very reminiscent of Bring Me the Horizon and their sound and their image and everything. And it might have not been their intent,
Yeah.
for people to make that connection, but it's also how they got their audience because people love Bring Me the Horizon. I love Bad Omens now, They have their own image and their own sound now compared to, however long ago. But I think starting out, if you don't have an idea of what direction you want to go in as far as branding, I think it's good to, study your influences
Yeah.
and see how they work and kind of just, it's a start, following how they kind of do things. And then as long as you branch off, you learn the basics and then you branch off into your own identity.
Yeah. I think that's great advice because even if someone were to say that they weren't like, say, copying is like a harsh word. So saying like reflecting off another artist, well, at the end of the day, so full disclosure, I'm not musical at all, but even just from my perspective of like, cause I do like some photography and videography too for my business.
Yeah.
So like my style is probably a collection or a collective of all the styles I've consumed and liked over time.
Right.
So that's, I would assume probably how artists are. Like everyone has a favorite, like Drake has a favorite rapper that he grew up listening to, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And plug in the name and they had favorite people. And then in turn, right, that's going to kind of probably come out in their stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, that makes sense. So how do you balance being a creative and running like the business side of things?
I balance those two things and my full-time job.
Yeah.
Which is even more difficult. The job that I work, I'm working 12-hour overnight shifts.
Oh man.
In a factory.
What is that? A factory job you said?
I work in an assembly
Okay.
plant type of thing. Assembly line. I work in the warehouse area, so I'm kind of like a machine operator, if you will.
Okay.
But long nights, not physically demanding too much, but it's, it affects your sleep and everything. And so normally, I'll work those couple of shifts and still try to get up at some point during the day.
Yeah.
And I just get out there and, I book shoots and things of that sort. Not everybody wants to do a shoot at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So like it's a lot of just getting myself up is the hardest part,
Yeah, that makes sense.
But in terms of balancing the business and creative stuff, it's hard. I will say it's hard, and it's, it's a learning experience because entrepreneurship overall, they don't really teach you how to do this in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of YouTube University and,
Yeah, 100%.
maybe college, whatever. But it's, I spend a lot of my time outside of work. I spend a lot of my time at home studying what everybody else is doing. And it could be anything from, I work on short form content with artists and things of that sort. So I'm looking through TikTok and looking at artists like them and seeing, what's working for this artist. What are they saying in their videos, hashtags, keywords, visuals,
Yeah.
while also, Instagram showing me all these videos on Explore of how to edit this way or this way.
Yeah, exactly.
And I ignored it for a long time. I was like, I don't want the algorithm telling me what to do, just whatever. But, I decided to just embrace it and learn from it. I can't avoid it.
Yeah.
So if I'm not working and if I'm not actively doing a shoot or something, it's a lot of studying, self-studying and watching YouTube videos, learning how to use Threads.
Yeah.
That's how I found
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Threads was a platform that I thought was dead for a long time. And I think a lot of people thought that, Instagram was very enticing with, oh, we have a new platform and you don't even have to do anything. Just make an account. We'll auto follow your friends,
Yeah.
But then it kind of just stops there, and that's why I thought it was dead for a while. And I said, what, I'm going to look at it, try to learn it. It turned me off for a while with certain posts because it almost gave like engagement baiting kind of vibes.
Yeah, exactly.
Early Instagram also started out like that, where people would do a method called share for share.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just like there were very baity captions like, oh, I'm giving my number to the first 50 people to follow my friend. And then you never actually do it. Why would you? But, it's just like, that was the way of gaining active followers at the time. So when I saw that on Threads, I was like, oh no, it's happening again.
Yeah.
It's
I know what you mean.
again. I want to connect with, insert 100, oddly specific niches about creativity. And then, I'll message every single one of you and then they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
So seeing that, I'm like, okay, this is how you get people's attention, but I'm going to actually connect with these people. I will message you, it's just, and that's really, that's it. That's how I learned Threads.
Yeah. I love Threads. So kind of the same experience with it as you. I think I got it like a year ago.
Yeah.
And then I think I looked at it like one time and then I didn't look at it again for probably close to a year.
Yeah.
So it was a few months ago I started using it again. And the algorithm for like local stuff, I feel like is like super powerful on there compared to like obviously like TikTok and Instagram, like your stuff's getting pushed out like wherever. But I feel like on Threads, like I made the thread and I put anyone in Pittsburgh looking to be on a podcast and I pushed it out to a ton of people in Pittsburgh, which was crazy. And you're actually the second person from Threads that I've interviewed. I just interviewed a guy named Brian Riley. He's a realtor and I connected with him through Threads too.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy how the algorithm on every social media platform is different, and I'm definitely going to keep taking advantage of Threads. And I feel like for your industry, like working with musicians, Threads could be a great platform for them because like I would assume, especially being independent, a lot of them are probably writing their own songs, like the lyricists. So like they have skill in writing. So like Threads could be like a super powerful tool for them. And even like Twitter, X or whatever. I still call it Twitter, even though it's X. But,
yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah. But so when you start working with an artist, since you're a creative mind, but also entrepreneur and you're working with a creative, do you ever have like conflicts with like when you're like trying to create, or how's your process when you're, I guess like a good word for it would be probably like collaborating on a project?
I have butt heads with people sometimes, and it kind of comes down to like, if I'm working with an artist, it's like the rules versus the vision.
Yeah.
And so like, but I also understand as an artist, the vision and wanting to stick with it, but within that there's rules.
Yeah.
especially when it comes to branding. There's an artist that I work with where there was a point we didn't butt heads, but it was kind of just like trying to find a common ground. This artist had changed. They started out with a certain image, built up a fan base, changed their image, noticed the change in the fan interest, and then wanting to go back to the image but change it just a little bit. I said, even if you change it a little bit, it's gonna mess things up, And I was just recommending going back to your original image. It was a good little experiment just to see how things. But if it's not working out, you need to go back before we get in too deep. And so it's stuff like that, but it doesn't happen too often. In terms of like, I used to Blossom Sessions as an example. So it's for me versus an artist with the Blossom Sessions, it's both of our visions and the rules. Because the Blossom Sessions has its own aesthetic, floral, flowers and things.
Yeah,
of that
which is
sort.
super cool. I was going to ask you at some point, did you put that all together?
Sort of.
Yeah.
I'll elaborate.
All right, cool.
But so yeah, the floral aesthetic, and I've had artists interested, and they're like, "Oh, can we do it outside?" I would love to. I could, but this is something like Tiny Desk. They have their own set and everything.
Yeah, they have their brand.
Yeah. It's a brand. So trying to meet in the middle in terms of the Blossom Sessions brand and the artist brand hasn't been an issue. It's just something new, a new territory to kind of navigate, and especially with the rule of reimagining your song. I haven't had any conflicts there, but solo artists will come to me, a rapper or something, and they might have the general idea like, okay, I know a drummer, I'll bring a drummer. And I'm like, okay, great. But now the recording's going to be kind of raw, which is vocals and drums, So I start suggesting a violinist, or if you have your stems to your song, bring your synths in from your song or, whatever. And they're like, I don't know about that. And I'm like, I promise you it's going to be a raw recording if you don't bring, fill it out a little bit more. So it's, in that sense, it's no conflict. It's no butting heads. It's a lot of trying to guide them in the right direction.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So elaborate more on the aesthetic of Blossom. I was like, obviously I creeped on you a little bit. So
Yeah.
I liked how like the mic stand, you had the floral going all up it. Like, tell me about that and like your vision behind that.
So I'm going to go back in my life story because this stems pretty far back.
Okay.
So growing up in the house that I used to live in, I was a sad kid. I don't know what about, but I would go in front of this little vent, on the wall and just blow out some heat. But I would just sit there and cry, just be sad about, whatever I'm being sad about. And there was one time, my mom had come over and she had paint and like stencils with her, and she started painting a garden on the wall. And then she put up a little white wooden picket fence, she glued it to the wall, and then she wove Christmas lights through it. And so even though that was my spot before, now it was my spot, it was a safe space, even though she was always there with me, that if she wasn't next to me, I still felt her with me. And so going through life, it kind of just followed me in ways that I didn't realize. Fast forward to Blossom Media, and then the Blossom Sessions, the flowers and the lights all come back, and that stand she actually put together.
Oh, that's cool.
So
That's awesome.
I bought a white boom stand, and I bought out nearly every Dollar General in my radius.
That's awesome.
I spent about $300 on the fake flowers,
Oh, I believe it.
$1 a flower.
Yeah.
And I asked if she could help me kind of put this stand together, and so she did.
That's cool.
And I had a friend of mine build 4 wooden boxes. They're pretty decent sized, you know. But I said, I need you to build these so that people can sit on them, but also stand on them because it is meant to be a performance in a sense, you
Yeah.
know. So he built 4 boxes that have the felt on the bottom. I can arrange them however, you know, if I have one artist or a band or whatever. And it also has the grassy kind of texture around them. So overall, like I love this aesthetic. You know, I can arrange it however I need to. But yeah, the flower stand is a vital piece to
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, it's super cool. Definitely makes you stand out like right off the bat. Scroll on like Instagram or wherever you're looking at it. Super cool. And I was gonna ask you, I assumed they were fake flowers.
Yeah, they are definitely.
Because when I first watched, I was like looking, I was like, how'd she do that with the flowers? And I was like, oh, they must be fake. Then I was like, I don't know how to ask her.
Yeah, they are. And I bought a bunch of flower petals. And it's funny, you know, I go down to the space to set up very early, you know. I'm the only person as a part of the Blossom Sessions. You know, I have someone who does the in-house mix and master, but I go down and do the set design, record the audio, video. But, you know, I start throwing the petals around like a flower girl. I'm like, oh.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's overall, it's a pretty cool setup.
Yeah. So what's like your overall vision for it? I know you said you're working overnights right now. I would assume, are you want to do Blossom full time eventually or what?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the direction it's going, I will be able to do that. I'd like to have my own space in Pittsburgh.
Where is it now?
In a small town called Vandergrift, which
Okay.
is where I grew up actually.
Oh,
And
cool.
so kind of a full circle moment, you know. But yeah, I'd like to have my own space that's in the city or closer to because I'd like to start reaching out to tours and kind of catching them, you know, if they have a day off before or after their Pittsburgh day or even the day of, you know, earlier in the day, I'd like to start catching tours and kind of just start growing from there.
Do you want to keep it in like a church setting?
Doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Just kind of happen that way. Or,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I love that space in particular. It's called the Sanctuary. And Chloe, who owns the space, she has been incredible to me. You know, she lets me use it anytime, pretty much. And if you look at the background of the space, the walls are painted also with like women with flower crowns, I think it is. So
Oh, it's cool.
overall, it just blends together.
Yeah, it
in
just
a
blends
way.
in perfect.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yep.
So who you were talking about the future with like tours and stuff. Do you have a dream collab to do with someone
I have a lot.
or multiple? Yeah.
I have a lot. And one of them, I've said this before, an artist named Chris Gray. And he is like a dark themed artist. I would compare him to like The Weeknd, things of that sort. Very theatrical in his sound. And he's an artist who truly broke the internet, I would
Yeah.
say, you know, especially on TikTok. He has a song called Let the World Burn that I think it was blowing up. And then, you know, someone made an anime TikTok edit and it just, you
Yeah.
know, soared. And, you know, that song itself, I think, has a few million streams in the double digits, you know. And then he released an album, charted on Billboard, you know, just quite literally went from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
And just everything he did is really inspiring to me. And I would really, really love to work with him.
Chris, you better hit her up now before she blows up. Then you're on the wait list.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Come on.
That's awesome.
And if I were to say like a more known artist, Billie Eilish. Probably.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you could do some crazy stuff.
Absolutely. I just, that's a
Billy,
long,
this is your chance.
I might just have to have someone else film Billy because I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah.
I'll direct everything.
I'd be scared I'd mess up.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
How long have you been doing videography and photography for?
I've been doing photography longer than video since 2015.
Nice.
So we were running the venue from 2011 to 2023. We had to close the space due to COVID and everything. But yeah, 2015 is when I picked up the camera. And looking back, you know, we would book tours. At that point, I was also the primary talent buyer, you know. So I would book a tour, facilitate their load and everything, get them set up. Show starts. I am zipping around with my camera, taking pictures. Oh, next band's ready to go. All right, let's tear down, let's set up,
Nice.
just running sound, running the lights, just running around. And, I would go home after a long night, edit through 200 to 300 photos per band, and turn that around to them within 24 hours. I'm like, I'm looking back and I'm like, how did I do that?
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, but got a lot of practice. And then with video, I started video maybe around 2020 or 2021. It's still pretty new for me. But I like it. I like it because it's new. It's a challenge. And I'm realizing I'm a fan of cinematography and kind of making things look like it's a movie.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of vlogs pop up on YouTube, but they shoot it like it's a movie, color graded and everything. I'm like, I love those.
Yeah,
I love them
that's
so
cool.
much. So I want to do more stuff like that for sure.
That's cool. Do you have preference? Like if you had to choose like what you like better?
Photography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because you've been doing it longer or just like in general?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
It's definitely my stronger suit versus video, but I never get tired of, when I'm shooting a concert and when you caught that moment in that moment, like without going home and looking through and you're like, oh, that's a good shot. Like you witness the moment and you capture in the camera. I just live for those. I just love it. And, it makes me even more excited to go home. I go straight to that photo. I'm like, yep, yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's it look like for an artist that's like working with you? Do you do like, you don't have to get into like pricing or anything, but like, do you do like packages? Like you sign someone on and then you become like their content creator, their manager? Like, how does that work? Or is it like different scales based on different clients?
Different scales with different clients
Yeah.
for sure. So with Blossom Media, I am looking to branch into areas of management as well, but I'm not going to say, the blanket statement management. I don't know anything about publishing or sync or, so, but, my strongest suits are show booking. I was a talent buyer for 10 years or so. I'd like to do the flip side of that where I'm doing the booking management for an artist instead of booking the artist. A little bit of PR work. That's something that I don't do a whole lot, but I just haven't been given the chance to kind of flourish in that area.
Makes sense.
So show booking, PR, and then content creation, creative direction. It's very much a sliding scale depending on who comes to me for what.
Yeah.
But in terms of visuals and things of that sort, I say that I really prefer to work with an artist on a longer term and not just kind of, oh, you need a music video. All right. Okay, let's
Yeah.
shoot 5 so that everything's kind of cohesive. So yeah, I would say in terms of pricing, it depends on the purpose. I know for shows, I would love to do that, booking artists for shows. But I'm not going to sit here and take a percentage if you only made $30 off of a show. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Makes sense.
It's very much a let's feel this out. And, if we get a gig that makes sense for the both of us that I could take a percentage, then we'll do that, I think that's kind of the difference with my history of running the venue and everything.
Yeah.
I know the expenses, I know the costs, and especially with touring, so.
That's cool.
Yeah, no.
No, that's good. How are you finding artists? Are people like more so reaching out to you, or are you kind of like headhunter, like searching for talent, reaching out?
A little bit of both. More so me searching. I realize that I'm dangerously good at finding information.
Yeah.
When it comes to like,
That's a good skill.
yeah, absolutely. I guess that's an A&R asset, you
Yeah.
know. But, if there's an artist that I want to book for a show and, their booking email isn't quite just out there, I start digging, I mean, if I can find your manager is tagged on your Instagram photo, then okay, I found your manager.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's, and that goes with everything. If I want to try and pitch artists to, podcasts or magazines. It's why I spend so much time on things like threads and things of that sort. It's kind of just constantly logging whatever I can find just in case,
Yeah.
whatever that just in case may be, venues, bands in other cities, and, just if I need it, I have it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have, so directing this towards like musicians specifically, if you could give them like one piece of advice towards their branding, what would it be?
Ooh.
Put you on the spot. It's a big
Yeah.
question.
I would say, try to be yourself, even if you're not so sure what yourself is yet. And study your influences, at least get some guidance on where you want to start, But mostly being yourself will guide you, in the right direction, even if you don't quite realize it at the time.
Yeah.
Because people gravitate to authenticity always. So, yeah, it's pretty cliche, but
No, it's good advice because that's like, it's the only thing that no one can replicate
absolutely
is you as a person. Like people could replicate your sound, they could replicate style, but at the end of the day, no one can be you. Only you can be you. So that is very good advice.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I feel like that's advice I would have gave.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
it's pretty
I feel
solid
like
advice.
the question I asked you, I felt like that was like definitely what the best answer could have been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now to direct a question. So I ask every guest that I have on this show. So this one directed more towards just like entrepreneurs in general.
Sure.
If someone wanted to get 1% better today, what would you advise them to do?
Have a willingness to learn. And I think that's something me especially, I needed to realize that because I started out with a bit of an ego on me, thinking I know everything and I definitely don't. But once I realized and, was more receptive and open to Instagram showing me, whatever on its algorithm, oh, how to edit like this or that, just opening myself up to learning, it's definitely changed everything for me, and it's even made me more willing to work with other people because even that's a thing, you know what I mean? You have such a strong vision for something and sometimes you don't want to let other people into that, you know what I mean? But it's all about having the willingness to learn and being willing to work with others, you know what I mean? Having a team and just going from there.
Yeah, for sure. Was YouTube like your spot for learning most of your stuff? Because that was my spot. I was
Yeah.
always on YouTube watching stuff, especially for photography and videography. Literally everything I learned was from YouTube.
So, yes, especially with Photoshop. When Photoshop was new, I was watching every tutorial I could and,
Yeah.
walking through with it. And it's kind of where I learned, photo editing and stuff like that. And I love Photoshop's generative AI.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. The generative AI is crazy.
at first, I was not a fan. I was like, wow, imagine going from learning how to clone something for 4 hours straight to AI just, you
Yeah.
know, and I was like, oh, wow, you're making it easy for these newbies, but it's making it easier for me, that's for sure, So
Yeah.
I stopped complaining about that pretty fast and utilizing it like everything else,
Yeah. I don't know those. So the two questions I asked you, I usually ask towards the end of the episode, but now I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, where do you see the music industry in the next 5 years with like AI, like
Ooh.
incorporated into it?
So I see a lot of people's opinions leaning towards, oh, it's going to get to a point where it's undetectable. You can't tell if it's a real person or not. And though I think that will happen, I think we'll also overall be at a point that we can still recognize, whether something's human or whether it isn't. Because, I think, when social media came about, Vine and things of that sort, I think everybody kind of had that same opinion. Maybe not about AI, but,
Yeah.
Vine's going to destroy email or so, just something crazy. But I think overall, we're more ahead, like a step ahead than we think.
Yeah.
always, regardless of what technology is coming about. So in terms of the music industry, I think, we're going to see more AI, anything, images, sounds, songs, but we're very much an adjust and adapt kind of society. So we'll find a way around it or
Yeah.
worth it, utilize it or be against it. But it's going to change things. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think it would come to a point where artists could kind of just like sell or license their image, and then people that are good at formulating things, like for example, I talked about Drake earlier. So Drake, he could license his image and like approve everything that comes out, but like basically make songs with his voice and things like that in music videos where you can't tell it's him, or you can't tell it's not him. You know what I mean? You can't tell it's
Yeah.
AI, but it technically is.
I think so. Especially, I think of artists or bands that have music videos with someone featured, but they couldn't get together to film.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see AI being utilized for that a lot more, where the featured artist is in the video, but
Yeah.
not.
That's a great insight. I didn't even think that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are going to utilize that a lot. And I think that's going to be for the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah. I think a lot of people are scared of AI right now, which it could definitely obviously be used for harm, just like social media, just like the internet, just like anything that's ever been invented. It could be used for bad, but I think AI could be used for like a ton of good
Yeah,
in like every industry. So I'm excited for it.
absolutely.
So
Me too.
we'll see. So last question I have for you.
Sure.
Is there something that I didn't ask you that I should have? This could be like a spot where you could just kind of just dive into like if there's something in branding that I should have asked you, or any like with the media side of things.
Off the top of my head, I don't have anything.
Yeah. It's a tough question.
Yeah, it is.
What about dad in the back? Anything I should have asked your daughter that I didn't ask her?
Where does she see herself in 10 years?
Ooh,
10 years.
from your dad, Mark.
I'll be
Where do you see
almost
yourself in 10
40
years?
10 years.
You'll still be young.
Yeah, that's true. In 10 years, I see me doing this creative stuff full time, whatever that may be. I may be in a band, or I may be shooting photo, video, or just something in the creative realm, full time. Ideally, I would like to be doing the Blossom sessions full time. Probably in a major city at that point, somewhere, I don't know, Texas, Miami, New York, LA, something like that. And just doing the same thing as everybody else, working with touring artists and just continuing to assist smaller artists in terms of branding and giving them a platform.
That's awesome. Well, I believe you.
Thanks.
You already put in the hard work, doing overnights, drove like an hour and a half to be on the podcast. So you're putting in the work, and it'll all pan out for you for sure.
Thanks.
I believe in that. But last thing, just tell everyone how they can find you. How can they follow you, Blossom Sessions, all of it?
Okay, so I am only on Instagram as far as my personal account. I'm on other places, Threads, but I'm not super active. So Instagram at Alessandra Gibson, maybe an underscore somewhere in there.
We'll throw it on the screen here.
Yeah. And then Blossom Media. If you go on Instagram, it's blossommedia.co. I have a website, blossommedia.co. And Facebook is Blossom Media LLC. And then Blossom Sessions, everywhere it's at Blossom Sessions. Aside from Instagram, there is a period between Blossom and Sessions. Blossom Sessions is also on YouTube, of course. That's our main platform.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ali, for coming here. Mark, thanks for coming out here with her. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. And thank you all for watching this. I don't know which episode this is going to be, but it's going to be in the new year. Like I said, Happy New Year. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. Go give Ali a follow. And I'll see you guys on the next one.